I think I see the little red box in the corner. We are rolling live. Happy Friday, everyone. It's a casual Friday for me. I'm just comfortably, casually, always proud to wear my Aztec gear. Getting over a little bit of a cold. It's not affecting my energy. It's not affecting my excitement. It's not affecting my enthusiasm. It's just annoying. But here we are for another installment of Get a Clue in 52. This version is for coaches, myself included. I'm always happy to share that as I endeavored to write this book, I thought about the aspiring and emerging coaches that I really have a lot to give to because of my 17 years experience on. I realized I got a lot to learn myself. As I'm going through all of this, I realized I'm struggling with some of the same things. Some of the same challenges persist no matter what stage of evolution we're at in the business. And there we go. There's that word, business. I don't even like to call it a business. We're going to get into it today because as you know by now, in every version of Get a Clue in 52, there's 5 sections, 5 categories. There's some, some string that strings the pearls, if you will. For what we're doing this year, we've got the first category, which was self-promotion. Let me go ahead and put these banners on the board. If you take time to create banners, you should put them on the board, right? So welcome to Get a Clue in 52 for coaches. Anyway, all right. So the first 11 tips of the book were about self-promotion. We have to learn how to become a coach, call ourselves a coach, then start telling the world that we're a coach or we can coach. We know how to coach. We're certified in coaching. We went through coaches training. And there's degrees of progression there, like evolution. We got to get comfortable with all of that. I just think it's cute. I remember the discomfort I had the first time somebody ever referred to me as Coach Jeff. I was like, what? Who are you talking? Oh, me? You're talking about me. Then, there's another level of discomfort that you have when you actually calling yourself a coach to somebody out there in the world, whether it's online, an email blast you send out at a networking event, whatever the case may be. And then we get more and more comfortable with it. And we have to realize some things in these 11 tips that we're more than just a coach. Before we were a coach, we were more than a coach. And after we've become a coach, we're more than a coach. And so those are seeds that I've planted in those first 11 tips that we're coming back to. We're going to water them and they're going to grow a little further down the 12 tips that we're on. But after we become a coach and learn how to coach and tell the world that we're a coach, then what? Yeah, we need coaching clients. So the next 9 tips in the book were about getting engagement or enrollment. So if I'm a coach with a private practice, I want people to enroll in coaching with me. I want people to enroll, right? Sign on the line and give me the credit card or cut the check. If I'm a leader inside of an organization that's adding coaching to my skill set, adding coaching skills, coaching dialogues, coaching techniques, coaching acumen to my leadership skill set, my leadership toolbox, I want my people engaged. I want people to run through a brick wall for the mission, vision, objectives of the organization. I want them to have their own goals and see the intersection between their own goals and the goals of the institution and trust me to be the leader. I want permission to lead. So whether I'm getting enrollment or engagement, I want permission to be your leader. Once I've got that, then it's just motivation plus accountability equals results. So we had 10 tips from the motivation section and 10 tips in accountability. It was fun. One of my favorite tips in the 10 tips on accountability. All right, Vong's coming in. Cool. We'll get Vong in here. All right. Hey, Vong.
Whoa. Hello, guys. Good morning.
Yeah. So I'm doing my intro to the whole jam, and we'll get into the tip reading and all of that. It's nice to see you and Sue as always. So I was mentioning that the Integrity Game, which is a book I came out with last year, it's a 10-point model. And I wrote a parable to expose the 10 points on the model or introduce the 10 points in the model, where all 10 points are summarized in one of the tips in accountability in the current book that I'm reading. There you go. Oh, thanks, Vaughn. Cool. Right on. It's nice that you've got that copy. There you go. I love seeing it. It never gets old. Never gets old. I love seeing it.
I hope you know the author. If you could get him to sign it one day, that would be really cool.
I do know the author, and I can get him to. We'll work that out offline. Let me take a sip of coffee and just smile proudly. It never gets old looking through a computer screen and seeing somebody with a copy of my book on the other side. Never get tired of that. All right. So what I'm getting at is we had 10 tips on accountability, and now we're into the 12 tips on practice building. But as a review, last year we did the Get a Clue in 52 Entrepreneur Edition with Vipul Dayal as the co-author. Shout out to Vipul. He and I were in Washington, D.C. last week, co-leading a leadership session for the Asian American Hotel Owners Association. Super fantastic program. Vipul also has another tips book called Give Your Way to the Top. And those 5 categories are about learning how to receive, then learning how to produce, then learning how to lead, then learning how to protect, and then learning how to give and serve. I was really happy to help him as much as I could on this project. And the original Get a Klu in 52 actually has 2 editions. The original where I made all the mistakes, and then the one that I cleaned up. So starting in 2020, I started reading all of these tips every Sunday night, and we would promote stream it into YouTube channel. Then in 2021, I read it again, the cleaned up version, but I streamed into the YouTube channel. So 2 different social media channels I populated with a tip reading, and there was different people on the line and different conversations that ensued afterwards. So it was still totally viable, but that's 2 consecutive years of reading a tip once a week. Then as I mentioned, Vipul and I, we co-authored this project in his branding and mine, Get a Klu in 52 for entrepreneurs. The 5 categories here were, let's see if I can remember them off the top of my head. We wanted personal branding, then business acumen, business ownership, and then leadership and influence, and then finally work-life balance. So those were the 5 categories here. And we read one of these tips every single week. We would stream into my social at 8 p.m. And then at 8:30 p.m., we would get onto his platform and stream into his social. And we did that on Tuesday nights. So that led me to this year where I knew I was going to be VP of communication for the Professional Coaches Alliance. And I wanted to invest this year promoting and advocating for the practice of coaching. And there's some people in my space that call it a coaching business. I want to build a coaching business. We want to help people build their coaching businesses. And I laugh. There's very few coaching businesses in the world. There's a lot of businesses that have coaching on the menu, but they're seminar companies or their personal professional growth business. They call it something else. And that's what we're heading towards today is we're in these 12 tips now for practice building. Practice building is where we're at. And I call it practice building. And I'm going to have a hard time until I have like full-time employees that are earning benefits and I'm paying myself a full and consistent regular salary and all these things I'm going to get into over the course of reading these tips to you that I want to establish for myself before I feel comfortable calling it a business. Until then, it's a practice. And we had some tips in this section that we've already covered. And today is going to be tip number 44. But what we started talking about in this section here is the very first tip in the practice building section is pay the fee of feasibility. Because a lot of people want to go into business for the wrong reasons, right? They don't like their boss. So I know I'll just start my own business. Or I love helping people. I know, so I'll start my own business. Or people told me I'm really good at this, so I'll start my own business. And the E-Myth by Michael Gerber talked about this woman named Sarah who was the best pie maker in all of town, and everybody knew it. And every time somebody saw her, they said, hey, you make the best pies in town. You should open a pie shop because I would buy pies from you. And everybody's telling her that she should open a pie shop just because she makes the best pies in town. Well, guess what? The book shows us what happens to her once she opens a pie shop. It's not very long before she ain't making pies anymore. She's repairing the ovens and dealing with the vendors and hiring her cousins who are Keystone copping in the kitchen because they both want to do the same thing and they're both avoiding the things that they were hired to do. And you can't hold your family accountable, can you? Because you can't anyway, on and on and on and on and on and on, right? So you want to call it a business, go ahead. But we're in 12 tips right now where I'm trying to convince you that you want to pay the fee of feasibility. And tip number 1, is it worth it? Are you really just going to get paid to do what you love to do the rest of your life and it's going to be super easy like that? Or are there going to be a lot of accountabilities that you're going to need to make sure are accounted for that might take you away from what the real passion was in the first place? Have you calculated what kind of life you want, how much money it's going to take you to get you that life, and then how many pies you need to sell in order to earn the money? On and on and on and on and on. So pay the fee of feasibility. Is it worth it to start this? Is it worth it to run this? Is it worth it to build this? Or you commit your life to it? Is this the lifestyle you want? Is this what you want to be doing with your time, talent, and energy on a day-to-day basis? If so, if you got yeses to that, then run it, build it, you do it, you do the hell out of it, right? So with a smiley face and maybe a winky winky and a naughty naughty, right? You know, you got to make sure the business run. Business is run. Even a practice, in my opinion, a practice, everything a business has running in the business, it's not all running if it's only a practice, right? So like run payroll. I don't have to run payroll because I don't have employees, right? So there's some things in a practice that don't run. But if you want it to be a business, you better make sure there's certain things that run. And one of those is your product and service development. Like you don't have a business at all unless there's something to buy. So we had a big tip last week on can I see a menu? Back to what I was talking about early on in self-promotion. If coaching is the only thing on your menu, you're going to have a hard time building a business. And you're going to have a hard time, in my opinion, selling enough coaching and then delivering enough coaching to have enough time left over to cover the other accountabilities on the org chart. Something's got to give. And we had a fun time getting into the hard realities. Sue, I remember last week, one of your pieces of feedback was, well, it was a little confronting, but super valuable. Like, one of the pieces of feedback was the honesty about how confronting these tips are. And that's why I'm delivering it in a jovial, casually dressed manner. Never mind that I'm sick and getting over a cold. Hopefully you can only hear it in my voice. You can't tell from my energy. Because when I talk about this, I light up with passion because this is my life. This has been my life for 17 years. I've gone through all of these struggles, that many of them I'm still dealing with now. And I know that as I continue to struggle to build my practice, maybe one day into a business, that there's a lot of people that aren't even as far along as I am. And so I got to give whatever I can give because I believe in coaching so much. It's changed my life. It's changed the lives of so many. People pay me thousands and thousands of dollars to talk to me or their employees or their family members, etc. And this is such a worthwhile endeavor. But we want to be honest about what it really takes. And so I'm happy to bring some of these things to you guys on a weekly basis. So we're in these 12 tips on practice building, and we're finally ready for today's tip number 44. I'll remind everybody, and I should bring up, and I probably could, let me see how easily I could bring up a picture of an org chart. But Sue, do you have your copy in front of you? I've switched here for a second. I could probably get a copy of an org chart. That's okay.
Not of my org chart.
No, I'll be able to do this pretty quickly. If you just stay patient with me, I'll be able to screen share the picture of an org chart, which might help me. And there's people out there that don't have your copy of Get a Klu in 52 for Coaches. And this is my shameless plug to say shame on you for not having I'm joking, of course. Shame on you for not having your copy. But if you don't have a copy handy, then all right, I've got my image ready to share with everybody. And it'll go a little something like this. I'm getting more smooth on StreamYard's platform. So when I go to share, let's just get a window. And here we go. So we're talking about having fun with Org Chart 101. So as a review, this number one, accountability right here, this is tip number 41 in this section, which is pay the fee of feasibility. Who's accountable for knowing if the business is worth it or the practice is worth it? Whoever owns it. So for me, that's my wife and I. So my wife and I have had very interesting conversations over the years if this Get a Klu thing is worth it. Trust me, very interesting conversations. And there's nothing more important. There's nothing more valuable under the sun than a supportive spouse. So having said that, once you make the decision, yes, it's worth it. I think we can make a go of this. I think I can make this work. Now, tip number 42 is accountability, number 2 on the chart. It's run it. Absolutely, make sure it runs. And when I say that, that means that you're gonna have at minimum these 4 departments reporting into you, the COO right here. And from left to right, marketing, sales, operations, and finance. So tip number 43 is in the land of operations, and it was last week, and it's like, what's on the menu? If this organization that we're looking at has nothing to sell, it's not a business, not even a nonprofit organization. Even nonprofits, we're selling donations, we're selling the cause, the cure, the whatever it is, right? The charity golf tournament, the donation, the prizes, the giveaway, the raffles, right? There's stuff to sell. What do we have to sell? What's going to bring in revenue? So that's this accountability on the chart right here. And it's in R&D, research and development. Can I see a menu? What's on the menu? And I'm here to tell you, if coaching is the only thing on your menu, you're going to have a hard time calling this a business or building it to a business and making sure it automates, et cetera. I'm not saying it's impossible. I'm just trying to get everybody to be real about the challenges involved. So with this as an overview and a backdrop, we're going to leave the operations department for tip number 44. And what we're going to do is we're going to come into the marketing department over here, and we're going to get into our very first tip in marketing right here, which is tip number 44. And I'm going to go ahead and stop sharing and come back to my guests and ask you, Vong, and you, Sue, before I get into the word for word read of tip number 44, can you allow me to catch my breath, take a sip of coffee while I ask if you have any comments, questions, feedback, or anything about any response to what I've said so far before I get into the tip reading for today, starting on page 177, if you're following along at home in your copy of Get a Klu in 52 for Coaches.
Just good to be here. Sorry that you've been sick. That's not good. But yes, you have been pushing it hard. And yeah, no,
Well,
it's good just
you do 8 lectures a week at San Diego State University in public speaking, 8 separate lectures a week. And then, in between that, pull an all-nighter, take the red eye to Washington, D.C., lead a 3-hour leadership program, and come back on a flight from Washington to Houston, Houston to San Diego, get up and give 4 more lectures at San Diego State. And then as a side note, hats off to the tip of the cap, hats off to the director of the School of Communication, Dr. Heather Canary, who's a mentor of mine, who originally saw me promoting the integrity game a little over a year ago, agreed to meet with me to learn more about it. And that thing led to another thing. And next thing I know, I'm on campus. And so at the time she was interim dean, and she's come back to us now to be the, return to her spot as the director of the school she was covering for a vacancy. And she did an admirable job, in my opinion, from what little I saw. And now, thank God for us, she's back as the director of School of Communication. And it's just really funny. She's like, Jeff, you're teaching for us now? I thought I just introduced you to the interim person and got it off my plate for a second. I'm obviously like not speaking I'm self-deprecating is what I'm saying here. But the point of it all is like, she's like, hey, Jeff, I'm back as the director of the school and I need to sit in your classroom and evaluate you. So I'm like, oh, great. Now I'm auditioning to keep my job at San Diego State after pulling the all-nighter in DC. And so there was a lot of energy put into, my lecture at San Diego State at 8 a.m. this morning earlier in the week. I see Margot coming on board. Cool. It's going to get even more fun. All right. Let the fun begin. Or like the accelerated, exponentially more powerful fun begin, Margot, now that you're here. 1 + 1 + 1 + 1 = 17 or more. But anyway, my point is, like, I'm actually glad I'm fatigued. I'm glad my body said, hey, Jeff, guess what? You are sick now. Right? Now that you've gotten this done, you finished your project for the Institute of Canadian Citizenship. You've got your project done for the Asian American Hotel Owners Association. You've prepared your lecture and earned, because it was like 3 hours after she evaluated me that I got the email and the offer for next semester. It was about an hour after that where I'm like, wait a second, I feel a cold coming on. When when my brain, my fight or flight on wanting to do a great job all the time finally relaxed a little bit, that's when the body said, oh, guess what? You're sick. You may not have noticed, but you are sick. So I've been battling this cold, and you can tell you guys it's not messing with my energy at all. I'm so excited about everything I'm doing. I'm a little happy I'm sick. Body's telling me to take some naps, reinvest in self-care, but I didn't even notice that I was sick until after these really important things to me. So thank you all for being here. Margot, I've introduced everything. I'm about ready to read tip number 44. I've even screen share a picture of Org Chart 101 that I used from my coaching and leadership training to develop these 12 tips. And I'm ready to get into it, except for any comments or questions that you guys have that I'm going to listen to, take a sip of coffee and a deep breath before I get into the word for word. But Vong is here, Sue is here, Margot is here. What do you guys got? Anything before I get into the word for word of it all?
I am at my son's house. Both of his kids are home from school sick.
Oh.
So I'm hoping that, although it's impossible, that I won't get sick. But,
so were you there and they just happened to be sick, or are you there to take care of them because they're sick?
We are here because my son had a meeting, and so we're here to help out.
Covering.
But yeah,
I was going to say, once they're all better, will you come take care of me? Take care of me, Margot. All right, Vong, Sue, do you guys have anything before I get into the word for word?
Yeah, drink a lot of water, buddy.
Yeah.
Flush it out, rest. I mean, it's just your body telling you. It's a good thing. Yeah, you're right, because it's telling you need rest, you need to stop, you need to slow down.
Yeah, I took a big nap yesterday. I drank probably a half a gallon of coconut water in addition to other waters. This 1 cup of coffee, it's just to avoid the headache and back to hydration.
Yeah. And, for the topic, I think, starting out with, is it worth it, helps. I mean, for anybody, if you're starting to coach them right at the beginning, you need clarity. What do they want? Where do they want to go? So same thing with the business. Is this long-term? Is this, going to be just a venture for like a 2 year.
What's the purpose of the business?
Right.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And then that's why. So starting off with, is it worth it? Makes you think, because you're going to invest time, energy, effort, and money into it. So yeah,
not just that. It's not just that, but people get into, when you read the tip, we're not on tip 41. You know, we read it a couple weeks back, but it's these wrong reasons that people get into it. Like, people might get into a coaching business or try to start a coaching business, as they call it, to get away from something else without any forethought into what they're really getting into. Right? The realities of building a practice into a business, right? And if you don't get super in, I mentioned this in the first 11 tips of the book, if we don't get super clear on why we're becoming a coach in the first place, then let's be clear. It's to earn money, doing meaningful work in a way that lets us call our own shots. But if we don't get honest about the earn money part, we're going to have a really hard time getting clients, because they're going to see our lack of confidence, right? We have to be clear. I deserve to be paid. And I had this anecdote, you know, an old client of mine came back to me to do sessions for his daughter. And I'm like, hey, you know, it's great. It's been 14 years. I want to let you know, 14 years, meaning I'm more expensive now. You're an alumni, so I'm going to give you a deal, but you're not going to get me for what you used to get me for 14 years ago. You just had to be upfront about all of that. And when it came time to negotiate price, he had to think about it. So you go ahead. You go right ahead and think about it. And if you find the coaching at the price that you need in a way that'll serve your daughter, rock on. I support you 100%, no hard feelings. Of course, he came back to me. Of course, he came back to me. He said, there's only one Jeff Klu back. Right?
And you have so much, 14 additional years of wisdom and experience to share.
Yeah. It goes, I said, I'm better now. I sat down, I had breakfast with him. I gave him copies of all my books. His eyeballs were popping out of his head. He couldn't believe how much I've done since, right? But my point is that we have to be upfront about the money part. We deserve to be paid. We've worked our butts off, and it's a valuable relationship. And if we're not upfront about the money part when we're learning to become a coach and calling ourselves a coach and telling the world that we're a coach, we're going to have a hard time enrolling people in coaching if we're not honest that coaching costs money. It's a really important investment, right? And I need to charge enough where I pay myself for the coaching and also have money left in the business for all of the other accountabilities that need to be met. And most people get into it without thinking about any of those things. And that's what I'm getting at. So that's the fee of feasibility, just as a point of review, right? Pay the feasibility, understand what life you want. Can this business give you this life? Can this practice? Can this endeavor? If so, run it. And that means you've got marketing, sales, operations, and finance humming along and sending you a report once a week and helping you make good decisions. And it sounds funny. I'm laughing because we all know that coaches don't have that, right? And then when we get into the operations department, we need to see a menu. What's on the menu? If coaching's the only thing on your menu, you're going to have a hard time calling this a business. You're going to have a hard time building it into a practice if coaching's the only thing on the menu. And all of that as a matter of review. We're ready for tip number 44. Vong, thanks for that piece. Are you guys ready to go on the word for word of it all? Page 177,
Yep.
If you're following along at home. All right, here we go. The fourth accountability on Org Chart 101. And maybe I'll put up, as a matter of fact, I'm going to put up the org chart while I'm reading word for word. How's that? Does that sound good?
Yep.
You guys can tell me if that helps the visuals. Can you guys see what's going on here? Can you see this?
Yeah, it's coming up.
All right, very good. So again, we're in the marketing department right here, and tip number 44 is related to the fourth accountability. When I'm teaching Org Chart 101, when I'm going over this with my clients, or when I'm teaching or training the coaches that I train how to go over this with their clients, we call it I call it either the Klubeck 12-step program. Hello, I'm a recovering businessaholic. Or I call it having fun with Org Chart 101. Or, this is it. These are the 12 basic accountabilities that must be met by any business if the business is to grow or get out of pain. Or said another way, if your business is not growing or experiencing any pain, then does it hurt here? Does it hurt here? Does it hurt here? Does it hurt here? We have a diagnostic. We can ask the questions. We can use these 12 accountabilities to ask our clients the right questions to get their mind's eye focused on where it might hurt. Now, if I hear noises like that, I have to stop sharing. You see, does somebody else want to come in? All right, I got to be careful. Maybe it's a comment that's being made. I don't know. Let me keep this up. I'll keep it going. Just for visuals. I'm such a visual guy. You guys know I'm not the most spreadsheet oriented guy. I'm definitely pictures and graphics and images. Not that I can create them, but anyway, here we are. We're in the marketing department, and here we go. Tip number 44. The fourth accountability on Org Chart 101, we leave the operations department for a moment and drop into marketing. You can see that I break all of marketing down into two accountabilities, tips number 4 and 5, or accountabilities 4 and 5. And they happen to be organized symmetrically, if you will. Info in and info out. Market research and marketing communication. This tip today is about the former, and tip number 45, the latter. So let me just highlight what we're focused on today. There are 3 categories of info we want to bring in so we can make profitable decisions for our business. The 3 most critical aspects of your marketplace that I strongly recommend researched, including a small sample of questions that I use in my coaching sections with my own clients who need to understand and revisit how important the C's are. So here we go. The 3 C's. So when we're going out into the marketplace and trying to get information to bring it into our organization so we can make good decisions on the messages we send out, here's what we're talking about when we talk about the 3 C's. First of all, customers. Who is your ideal customer? What are your demographics and what are the demographics and psychographics of your customer? Can you tell your customer's story? Do you know the self-talk your customer has when dealing with the problem you want to help them solve? How do you plan to continually gather information about and from your customers? Next, conditions or climate with a C word. What is happening socially, politically, economically, culturally, spiritually, structurally, geographically, environmentally, or otherwise in your marketplace? How do the conditions of the market influence your customers and their decision making? What aspects of market conditions require planning and adaptability in your, I should have put quotes there, business? Are there predictable occurrences or observable trends in marketplace conditions, seasons, holidays, elections, storms, droughts, recessions, wars, or pandemics maybe, that help or hinder your ability to serve your clients? Competition is the next C. Who are you competing with? Who else sells anything to your customers competing with you for their total budget? And who else sells the same thing, coaching, you are selling to them, competing with you for their coaching budget, if they even have one? Why would your prospects choose your competition instead of you? What does your competition do that you are not doing? What does your competition do better than you? Is there any way to cooperate or collaborate with your competition? Co-opetition. If I asked, who is your customer, you might be able to tell me. If your answer starts with the words, anyone who, you could probably improve your answer. If I asked if you knew, as of the writing of this book, that we are living in a post-pandemic new normal that includes the Great Resignation, record inflation, a Democratic White House Senate, and Republican House of Representatives, you might say, of course. But if I asked you if you could tell me how those factors affect your prospects' interest in or ability to invest in your coaching, you might say, who knows? I'm going to stop sharing for a minute because I think that you guys got the point of orientation here. And now I'm back. Take another look at the sample questions I ask my business practice owning clients when it comes to knowing the competition. When those questions are asked of us, any coach can tell you, even truthfully so, that I am my biggest competition. But this coach is here to tell you that if that is all you have to say when asked about your competition, you are hiding from admitting the additional truth that your coaching business does not research its competitors. In one very wordy question, does your coaching business have a process, program, procedure, and or person who intentionally, consistently, and periodically gathers and stores information about the marketplace, the 3 C's, in ways that are retrievable, accessible by officers, employees, and vendors that are working in the business? Personally, I'd feel better about calling what I have a coaching business if my answer to the question above was yes, especially if I could provide anyone with links to access, read, learn, study, and make strategic decisions informed by that info. And cue the music. You ready, Sue? 9 more accountabilities on the chart. 9 more accountabilities. I call it my, what is this? What's going on? There's a typo here, but it says I call it my business coaching because it should say I don't call my coaching business a business because I know in my heart I cannot honestly say a full and clean yes to my own question above. Sure, I have researched the 3 C's, but not systematically or consistently. Sure, I have links to info about my marketplace, but that information is woefully inadequate, or poorly organized for the purposes of assisting with strategic decision making. When it comes to this accountability, the closest I will get to calling what I have a business is when I use the word lifestyle as a qualifier to try to be as honest as I can about what I really have. For example, my lifestyle business allows me to attend 100% of my son's baseball games. Well, at least used to. Now that he's at San Diego State, that isn't true anymore. So, for example, my lifestyle business allowed me to attend 100% of my son's baseball games, while I otherwise should be doing more market research if I wanted to call it a coaching business. To the music. You nail one down, pass it around. If you are not convinced that failing to make time to effectively research your marketplace is blocking your path to a profitable coaching business, the next 8 tips reveal dozens more reasons why coaches struggle to build what I would personally feel comfortable calling a coaching business. 4 down. Is it worth it? Does it run? What does it sell? What must we know about the marketplace? And cue the music again. 8 more accountabilities on the chart. 8 more accountabilities. All right. So there we go. Next week, we'll talk about info out. But today was all about info in. Are we researching the marketplace? Are we constantly gathering information about customers, conditions, and competition, bringing that information in in ways that we can evaluate it to make good decisions about our product and service development, our pricing, what marketing messages we're going to put out into the marketplace, on and on and on. I can go on and on and on, but I'm going to go ahead and take a deep breath and ask for some feedback and some interaction. Tip number 44 has been read.
This almost like the SWOT analysis in business, strength, weakness, and things like that, especially the competition.
Strength, weakness, opportunity, threat.
And threats, yeah. So it's good to... Actually, I was teaching a small group last night on marketing strategies and things like that. And a lot of them haven't started their business, but they're interested in business. And a lot of them, I asked them, like, where are you targeting? Like they have an idea, very vague, but then they get choked up. They stopped when I asked, so who's your biggest competitors? They kind of like, oh, I just wanted to start. Like, I thought it's a good restaurant or eatery around this place. That's cool, but if you don't know who is your biggest competition, then you haven't done enough research, basically. Like, they have this idea for Filipino food, and I was like, that's good, no problem with that. I love Filipino food, but like, who's the biggest competition around here? And that's like, they couldn't name somebody. And I was just telling them, yeah, you need to know your demographic. Not only that, but your area, your place. And
there's so many other things. Market conditions. Do they know who are the decision makers on all of the property taxes and the legalities and the compliance issues of just owning or running a business, on that block, in that street, in that municipality? So, I mean, there's so many different factors to consider. This is my point, though. Why do they think they want to own a business? Because they love Filipino food and they think their Filipino food is good. It's very funny, right?
Yeah, that's pretty much it.
It's right, like, oh, everybody always compliments me on how good my lumpia is, right? Oh, I make the best pancit in town. Well, great. Now you're going to apply for the best permits in town and deal with the best politicians in town and compete with the best competitors in town who make the best Mexican food or Thai cuisine or dumplings or pho, and you're competing with all of that, right? So it's that goes back to what we were talking about before I started reading the word for word. It's like, why are you getting into this? What's your purpose? Why are you getting into this in the first place? And because all I want to do is make lumpia. I don't want to deal with politicians. I don't want to fill out permits. I don't want to pay taxes. I don't want protesters protesting on the sidewalk in front of my business because of some issue that's beyond my control that I haven't watched the news enough to know about. I don't want to board up my windows in case there's a storm. I don't want to board up my windows in case there's a riot. I don't want to carry a gun underneath the counter in case I'm like a target of some anti-Semitic violence that has been perpetrated on the news by some hothead. You guys understand what I'm getting at? Like all these things factor into the business.
Wow.
All these things factor. So good on you by holding up the mirror and asking the tough questions, right? Because people say, "Oh, marketing, cool. I'll just tell the world about how good my food is." Well, hang on a second. I can help you with that, but why are you in this business in the first place? Good for you, Wong.
Thank you.
We don't want to build a mansion on top of quicksand. I can help anybody sell their products and services. I can help anybody market their products and services. I can help anybody curricularize their content. I can help anybody, right?
Yeah.
But the feasibility, I can hold you accountable to conducting that research. But go ahead.
Yeah, I just told him, like, you guys did not do enough research. You guys just have this facade of what a business is supposed to be like, the lifestyle, like you said, right? I was like, I mean, you'll get all that too, but man, it's a lot of hard work at the beginning, and also you're gonna get days where a lot of things don't go your way, or they just think it's gonna work, right?
I think what you said before is way more important. Sue and I, we're working right now on the next version of Get a Klu in 52. It's going to be for speakers, and I think the same thing happens with speakers, and it sucks because I remember before I was like speaking regularly as I do now. I have to go back a couple of decades, but I remember seeing speakers, and I have the thought like, I'm better than that. I could be doing that.
Yeah.
But all I saw was them speaking on stage. Right? I didn't see everything they did to get on that stage.
True. Iceberg.
Yeah, you got it. All I see is, and I'm evaluating that. I'm like, oh, look, the lights are on them. Oh, look, everybody's coming up to them after the talk. And no offense, but that talk sucked.
Yeah.
And they still get the lights, they still get the video, they still get the pictures, and they still have people coming up to them. Why? Because they're on stage and nobody else is.
Yeah.
But what we didn't see was how much money they paid to be on that stage, or how much coaching they had to get behind the scenes to develop their talk, or how many hours it took them to develop their PowerPoint. And if they farmed it out to somebody else or did it themselves, now they weren't just a speaker. Now they're a PowerPoint designer too. And we don't see that, do we?
Mm-hmm.
And I mean, there's so many other things behind the scenes. So I think that's what you're talking about. People like, oh yeah, I see people that have their own business and it looks great, but we don't see what's behind, underneath the surface of the water, as you use the iceberg analogy, or behind the curtain to use the Wizard of Oz analogy. And I'm trying to be upfront about all this stuff. Like, people see me like, Jeff, I see you in this country. I see you in that part of the country. I see you in this city. I see, I see you with this project. I see these person tagging, you're at your son's baseball games and you're hanging out with your daughter and you're, going bowling with your younger son, and you seem to have it all, Jeff. And I'm like, yeah, I got a cold because I'm running every accountability on my chart. Yeah, I got it all, including the cold, because of the fatigue, because of how difficult it all is. And I don't think I have it all. There's still so much more I want to do for this world, and myself included. And that's what the book is all about. Get a Klu in 52 for coaches, myself included. So we want to be honest about all of that. I'm not going to sit here and be one of those people that says, hey, set your own schedule, set your own prices, work from anywhere. It's not easy. It's not. But it's worth it if you're willing to do the work. And I got a long ways to go, but I'm so far so good. I'm happy. And again, coaching isn't the only thing I do. For so many years, I was a professor and kept that paycheck coming in, even though it was only peanuts. It was only peanuts. It still was something. It was some degree of stability while I was building my coaching practice. Then my coaching practice got so good, I was going around the world, 12 different countries and 4 different continents, and I had to retire from teaching. And now post-COVID, I'm back in the classroom, not for the paycheck, but because of the identity and because my opportunity to give voice to Aztecs and to reconnect with my alma mater. And there's so many higher level needs that are being fulfilled. My son's on campus now. It's full circle stuff. It all feels really good. So there's a lot of reasons, but emotionally, when we talk about emotional fulfillment and the dominant emotions that we want fulfilled, I get all of them fulfilled by being in the classroom, right? But it's funny, I'm not just a coach. I'm a trainer. I'm a speaker. I'm an author. right? Trainer, speaker, author, consultant, and professor. Right. So it's because of all of those things that my business is having the success that it is, and I still don't even call it a business. Right. All right. What else? What else do we got? Get a clue in 52. Inching towards last call for comments, questions.
Question.
Yeah, go ahead, Sue.
Question. So honing in on the competition part of it. So who are you competing with, and especially in the coaching space? Do you have any comments around, like, are there elements to that you would target when you're looking at coaching competitors? Like,
Yes.
yeah, it's.
You ready?
I feel like it's hard to have something tangible. It's sometimes in the sense of when you're looking, say, at a restaurant business, you can, like, you've got that building almost that you can look at.
Yeah. Are you ready?
Yep.
I've got two so far. Give me more time
Yep.
and more answers will come to me. But categorically, I've got two answers, right? One, let's start with the basics, right? Because I always like to put the fun back in the fundamentals, right? So you ready? This is going to sound, let's say you're watching TV, and I know that we don't do a whole lot of that anymore because we have a business to build, right? But then the floor coverings commercial comes on. You ever see, like, I'm going to give a shout out to somebody locally here in San Diego, Kohl's Carpets, right? The place to go for all your floor covering needs.
Yep. Yeah, we've got equivalents. Yep.
You got the equivalent, right? So what I'm talking about, the fun and the fundamentals, right? You want to, those stores like that, they want to compete on price, quality, service, selection. Say it with me. Price, quality, service, selection.
Yep.
You know what I mean? The basics, the fundamentals.
Yep.
I'm going to compete on price. I'm going to compete on quality. I'm going to compete on service. I'm going to compete on selection. Do you want to wait 3 months for your carpet to be in stock and pay a premium for it? Or do you want to come and take advantage of our huge selection so that we can get your floors covered today? Right? So there's usual suspects is what I'm getting at. Convenience, service, pricing. Those are, I don't care what the products or services are, there's usual suspects, competitive, factors that we want to develop our competitive advantages around. Right? You see so many stores, like the electronics store, the consumer electronics store says, hey, we'll beat anybody's price by 5%. And so never mind the funny part, how you got bozos, no offense to you if you're a bozo out there, right? I say that with tongue in cheek, like I'm a bozo too. But you get somebody that goes and buys the $1,200 TV over here, right? And they go and they spend, and they go and they buy, or they go shop the $1,200 TV, and then they go to the other part of town to say, hey, it's $1,200, and they say, great, I'll beat it by 5%. And now, well, what's that really worth? It's gonna be like $50, right? 50 or $60. Well, my time is worth $500 an hour, but I just spent 2 hours saving $50 because somebody's competing with me on 5% price. It's very interesting, right? So price, quality, service, selection, the usual suspects. Okay. The other answer, categorically, is identity theft. Who's doing better than me? Who do I admire? What organization out there is doing what I would want to be doing? How are they doing it? What are they doing better than me?
Yep.
Right, there's a saying out there, and I have mixed feelings about the saying, but for the most part, I love it, which is never take advice from anybody doing worse than you. Okay, so even though there's some competitors that are competing with us, but they're not doing better than us. And like I told the story earlier in this session, I told my old client, go ahead, shop me, please. There are people out there that will compete with me on price. And if you need somebody that's doing $95 a session, because that's what you think coaching is worth, then you go ahead and you buy that $95 session. Do it.
Yeah.
Make sense?
Yeah.
Right? But don't think you're going to get better coaching. Because I compete on quality. I compete on service.
Yep.
I don't compete on price. I'll let anybody undercut me on price all day long because I've earned the confidence that I'm the best coach in the world. I believe that.
Yeah. And you're not doing yourself any favors by undervaluing.
I had the conversation. He's like, Jeff, you have to do it for this price. And I said, I'm not going to name his name. I say, I love you. And I know you love me because you've come back to me. And I know that you would spare no expense for your daughter if these sessions are for your daughter. And I know that culturally, you can't keep yourself from negotiating. So I love that too. Good for you. Right? It's just part of your culture to negotiate. And I know that you respect me enough that when I say you do not set my pricing, that you will appreciate that. I also know that you know that when it comes to coaching, I only have so many apples in my cart because there's only so much time in the day. And if I have a son's baseball game I want to drive to, and it's now instead of 5-minute walk, it's a 30-minute drive, which is an hour round trip. And now I want to go see my son play baseball, and that's an hour of my time. And you want to pay me X for that hour. Now I don't get to go see my son's baseball game because I sacrificed my pricing for your negotiation. Moreover, even if I didn't want to drive and see my son's baseball game, what if I wanted to just sell that apple to somebody else for 4 times what you're asking me to sell it to you for? Now, you don't want me coaching you or your daughter with a sense of resentment, with a sense of bitterness, or with my tail between my legs, or you don't want me beating myself up that I cut myself short and taking that energy into the session. You want me 100% focused on your success and your family's success, your daughter's success. You don't want me bitter, resentful, even 1% of bitterness heading into my coaching session with your daughter. And he's like, all right, Jeff. Right? But my point is, Sue, to your question is, when you're studying the competition, look for people that you admire. Look for people that you respect. And be careful about that too, because there's a lot of people that I thought were doing things that I wanted to do. And once I got close enough to it, I'm like, oh, now I see at what expense. Now I see what's going on behind. Out front, the iceberg looks good, and that looked attractive, and I thought I wanted to do that. But then when I got close enough, I'm like, I don't want to have to deal with all of this just to do that. I'd rather no.
Yeah.
Does that make sense?
Yeah, absolutely.
Right? The headaches that the each level of responsibility each level that we rise, we have new challenges and new responsibilities. And is it worth it? Do I want those headaches? Do I want a quality control or reputation control? Those things just to be looking like I'm doing this out there? Or do I really want to do this so bad I'll do whatever it takes?
Yeah.
So on the one hand, you follow the continuum I'm building for you. On one hand, price, quality, service, selection. Usual suspects. I don't care what your business is. You got to pay attention to these things.
Yep.
But then when you're really looking for other aspects to go and research, got to look for the people that are doing better than you, quote unquote. And be ready to understand that as you get closer and as you do more research, and no offense to Tony Robbins, but Tony Robbins, are you kidding? Do I want thousands of people buying my programs on and on? Do I want rooms full of telemarketers that are calling thousands of leads because of all the people? One time I thought I could do that. I'm as good as of a speaker as Tony Robbins. But you know what? I've had people that have worked inside Tony Robbins' organization who told me all kinds of stories about things that I don't want. Yes. And that's not a slight to Tony. There's no slight at all. But we have to decide, do we really want all of this? Is the fee of feasibility? Tony Robbins has to deal with stuff I don't have to deal with. And shout out, tip my cap. JT Fox has to deal with stuff I don't have to deal with. I don't care. Liz Brown, to use somebody that, he has to deal with stuff I don't have to deal with.
More gray hairs.
Well, it's just, is it worth it? How many headaches do you want?
Yeah.
How many headaches do you want? So, but like to your question, how many, T. Harv Eker, and I go through the list.
Yeah.
I used to think, do I want to build my coaching practice into a seminar business and go do the circuit and go speak all over the country and travel, speak. I was an independent coach. You coached Jeffrey for some of the other organizations. And so that got me close enough to study the competition. But I was, that's an interesting way to study the competition, is to independently contract to serve the competition.
Yes. Yeah.
I served my competition, but it wasn't competition anymore. It was co-opetition. So I co-opt my competitors, either below or above. Does that make sense? Why compete? So it's a crafty way to go about this whole thing. I want to make sure the tip is basic in its delivery as much as I have advanced perspectives and experiences dealing with my own tip, which is how have I studied my competition? Well, the best way to study your competition is get paid to do it, in my opinion. That's higher level. That's advanced level stuff. So you have to be valuable enough to another organization. You have to be humble enough to white label your stuff and play by somebody else's rules. Delivering your value. Case in point, where are you sitting right now, Sue? With me. Right? Yeah, exactly. But you met me when I was getting paid to study my competition. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Yeah. Is that a good enough answer? The two ends of the continuum.
Yeah, it does.
There's the basics, and then there's the advanced approach to studying.
Yeah, and I think too, it's keeping in mind about, as you learn more about your competition and you get closer to them, asking those questions. Are they doing stuff that I want to be doing as well?
Yeah. Are all of the headaches that they have to deal with in order to do what they're doing worth it? Even when, you know what I'm saying? Like, even when I was white labeling and I was Coach Jeffrey, I wasn't Get a Klu, wasn't the Integrity Game, wasn't any of my own personal, like my own business branding. It was just Coach Jeffrey, which, by the way, is its own business. It's its own brand, Coach Jeffrey. I'm available, by the way. Hey, organizations out there, if you're looking for a hired gun, which is more like hired fun, it's going to bring some energy on an independent contract where you can make money off of my efforts, right? I'm available. It's called Coach Jeffrey. I don't even offer my last name, so make sure that people stay connected to your brand. I'm very good at that. I've got a beautiful track record of 100% promoting the brand that's paying me. I don't call them my coaching clients. I call them assignments.
Yes. Yeah.
To make sure. I've seen other coaches do this, Sue. Haven't you seen this? Where other coaches, they're independently contracted for an organization, and they'll go on social media and say, "Oh, I'm in such and such a town with my client." I'm like, that's not your client. They're not paying you. They're paying the organization. The organization assigned this to you. It's your assignment. It's not your client. Where's your integrity? And they're like, well, no. If they're assigned to me, they're my client. I serve them. No. The person that assigned it to you is your client.
Yes.
And it's an assignment. So I'll just say it. JT Fox, when I was independently contracted with JT Fox, JT was my client. But others around the world were my assignments.
Yes. Yeah.
Right. When I'm with iCoaching and Consulting, led by Damian Elston, I'm not sure how active he is with that anymore. But years ago, last time we did an assignment, I think was 2019, before the pandemic and everything. But those were my assignments. Those weren't my clients. Right. And I worked my way up to doing a joint venture with him, where he put his label on my coaching and leadership training product, but it was still his clients, not my clients. It was my project, my joint venture, my content, but I was happy to let him put his label on my stuff. Right?
Yeah.
So when we study the competition, we want to look for audiences. We want to look for, here's a better answer in the middle. Look for like the Venn diagram.
Yep.
You know what I mean? We want to find the overlap, right? Like, hey, we're overlapping here. Like I offer, we both offer coaching. So you don't compete in the overlapping piece. You connect because of the parts of the circles that the other doesn't cover.
Yep.
Does that make sense? I think I was the only coach in that old organization that had 20 years experience teaching public speaking to adults. I think I was the only one. Right. So now I was bringing something to that ecosystem that wasn't there, competitive advantage. Makes sense. And in
Yep.
in Damien's
Yep.
organization, he didn't have a coach's training. I brought that in. So
Mm.
now we're cooperating rather than competing.
Yep.
Because the truth
Yep.
is, and I mentioned this in the tip, the truth is any coach will tell you, oh, I'm my only competition. Haha. I only compete with myself. When I look in the mirror, that's my only competitor. And there's some truth to all of that. You follow? That is the truth. There's enough people in the world. Ones that like me will buy from me. The ones that like you will buy from you. Right? But we're talking about building a practice, and we're going to have a hard time building,
Yes.
growing, scaling unless we understand our competitive advantages and our position to compete, even if cooperation is the competition.
Yep. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. Last call. Wow, this became a really good
Yeah. Good.
conversation.
Thank you.
Anything? All right. So here we are. Get a clue in 52. We must have lost Margot to a sick child or something like that.
Yeah.
And
probably.
she'll come back on. But I'm
Poor thing.
always I'm grateful that you guys are here. Thank you so much for being here, making the conversation dynamic. And I'm not going to do any promotions like freebies or giveaways or anything like that. I'm just going to wrap it up today and get back to resting and taking things chill. The weekend is upon us, so I get some extra naps and some extra sleep. And I really appreciate all your support. It's been fun. Next week, and you've got the preview already, next week is going to be tip 45, and it's going to be info out. So all of marketing is very simple. All of it. Bring information in and send information out. Of course, we're going to talk a little bit more about what types of information needs to go out, including calls to actions and funnels and on and on. We're going to get into that next week. But for now, we want to make sure we're studying our marketplace, the 3 C's of marketplace: customers, the conditions or the climate, and definitely the competition, including looking in the mirror from time to time. Thank you guys, everyone, for being with us on Get a Clue in 52. I appreciate you guys. We'll see you super soon. What do you got there, Vaughn? What are you doing?
I'm trying to get the screen.
Hold it closer to you. Hold it to your chest.
Take your emergencies, okay?
Yeah, vitamin C. Yeah, absolutely.
Yes.
I'm the next time I take vitamin C today, I'll be going on my 3,000 milligrams or whatever it is. I've got 2,000 down and probably get $5,000 in by the end of the day.
I dislike medicine in general, so I'm always trying to do other things but medicine.
Yeah, it's funny too. Now you're talking about competitive advantage. When I'm competing with, this is the other thing we didn't talk about this, Sue. When I'm competing with shrinks and psychiatrists. What's the difference between coaching and therapy? What's the difference between coaching and psychiatry? Well, psychiatrists, MDs, they can prescribe drugs. In coaching, I just get your hypothalamus to manufacture the right stuff.
True.
Yeah. All right, you guys.
Yep.
I love you guys so much. Thank you so much for being with me. We'll see you
All
next
right,
week. Have a
take
great
care.
week. All right. Bye-bye
Okay.
now.
Bye.